Hello, welcome back to Garden Obsessed. My name is Carla, and today we are going to talk about what to start in the 8 to 10 week range before your last frost. So it is partway, a little past mid-February, and that's going to put the 8 to 10 week range sometime in April. Where I am, our last frost is in May, so it's still, a little early for me to be talking about these things. But if you're in an area that has an earlier frost date, I didn't want you to miss this information. So I have my little baggies here. This one is my veggies and edible things, and this one is my flowers and things. So we'll do the vegetables first because this is a much smaller list. You're gonna see the next time I make one of these videos will be in the 6 to 8 week range, and you're going to see a lot more things start to show up in that group. These really the only things that we've started so far are things that are really slow growing, take a really long time to germinate, things like that. And the earlier you start things, the more you're going to have to bump things up, the more work you're going to cause for yourself. And I have found that it doesn't actually, I don't think you save that much time. I think sometimes it actually hinders plants because you're just not able to keep up with the transplanting and the nutrients, and like plants just grow better outdoors than they do indoors. So in this group, I have quite an assortment of peppers. So our hot peppers were in the last group. It's still not too late to start those. If you haven't started those, definitely go ahead and start them. But I do like to give my hot peppers a little bit of a head start. They tend to take longer to germinate, and I find them to be sometimes a slower growing plant as well. So we have our sweet peppers. I have quite an assortment here. I went through all of the peppers that I'm growing in a previous video, so if you want to see that, go back and check that out. And actually yesterday I had my very first hot pepper germinate. So the season is well on the way. I'm getting excited for the growing season. So sweet peppers is something that I like to start in the 8 to 10 week range. The next thing that I like to start is eggplants. So if you're growing eggplants, now is a good time to start those as well. I find them to be a little bit slow to start, and they need quite a long season to produce fruit, especially the larger ones. I like these ones because they're smaller and they grow really well here. Every year I try these and might get one or two. It says 80 days to harvest, but I have found that to be longer than that. And so I like to give these quite a big head start. And the last thing edible wise that I like to start around this time of year, and I'm just gonna fan out my seed packs here so you can see what we have going, but I like to start my herbs. So a lot of these take a long time to get going. Some of them have tricky germination. I'm going to try stevia again. I've had mixed results with that. Some years they've grown great, and other years, I don't get anything, or they languish and just kind of don't really do anything. So we're going to try to grow stevia again. I've got some rosemary in here. It's really slow growing. Oregano, thyme. I've got some sage, sweet marjoram, and some tarragon. So I'm going to get these things started in probably the next couple weeks. That's it for edibles in the 8 to 10 week range that I start. There are other things, different people do things different ways. You do you find what works for you. This is how I do it. So now this is a much bigger bag, strictly because half of it is sweet peas. So sweet peas I like to start, around 8 or 9 weeks before, mostly because in addition to, these groups tend to have things that are slow growing or, take a long time to germinate. It also includes things that are very cold hardy and can go out a lot earlier than some other things. So sweet peas fall into that category These I'll be able to plant outside a month before my last frost date, so I need to get these going so that I have nice sized transplants that I can harden off under my covered porch for probably a week before I actually plant them in the ground. So sweet peas, definitely on this list. The other thing that falls into that category as being like cold hardy and able to, you know, be transplanted outside a lot earlier is things like perennials. So if I have any perennials, I'm going to try to get those seeded soon so that I will have nice sized transplants to plant out a little earlier than other things. And that takes some of the pressure off, you know, when the warm weather comes, there's a lot of things that have to go in a short amount of time, and this just takes some of the pressure off. So I've got things like Campanula, Echinops, Feverfew, some Rudbeckia is perennial. It's also a hardy annual, so things like cold hardy annuals can also be planted around this time, and you know, get those ready to go out earlier than your last frost date as well. So some other things that I'm growing is Cresspedia. I've had mixed success with this, and these seeds are getting quite old now, so I'm just gonna seed everything I have left and see if I can get something. I've got some lace flower. I grew that last year. It's really pretty. I've got some Kirigami oregano and some Mahogany Splendor hibiscus and some Dusty Miller. So those are the things that are in my 8 to 10 week range. I'm going to also start doing like seedling tours just so that you can see, you know, where things are at as the season progresses. And I really like that for reference to look back year to year to see like, oh, this grew really well this year. What did I do different than the year before? Things like that. Just kind of document the process. But things are really just starting to germinate, so there's not a whole lot to look at yet. I have a few trays in there. I've seeded things like, I like to grow a lot of my own like plants in hanging baskets and pots and things on the deck. So I've started some geranium, some petunia. I've started, what else have I started? I started a few Dusty Miller plants, and oh, I know I'm forgetting something. Coleus, geraniums, petunias, pansies. And other than that, I have my celery and my hot peppers are the only edibles that I have seeded, and that's pretty much it. I just potted up some, or I put in flats some ranunculus the other day. I did film it, so I'll get that video out soon too. And that's pretty much all we have going on so far. I'm trying to ease into this seeding season. Trying not to overwhelm myself this year like I do every year. You know, I have space for 16 trays under the lights, and that's it. So I'm trying to be a little more conservative than I usually am. Every year I seem to, you know, I want everything and a lot of everything, and I forget that I don't have space for all of those things, and a lot of things die slow, painful deaths in trays sitting on the front porch, and I would like to minimize that this year. It's a lot of extra work for me to care for them until their deaths, and you know, it's a waste of seed and soil and all of that stuff too. So that's where we're at. 8 to 10 weeks, getting excited. We've had a few days that feel like spring, and this is also kind of, heads up, there will be a video about this too, but this is kind of around when I like to start winter sowing. I don't like to do it, like there's no point in me starting winter sowing in January because the seeds are just gonna sit in that soil and rot. It's not until, you know, our day length gets longer and the days start to be warmer, those seeds are gonna actually germinate anyway. So, you know, if you like to pick away at it and put a few out all at once, or, you know, as you go, you know, that's one thing, but I like to just get it done. I have kind of a different method than the standard. I tried the jugs the first year I did it and I hated it. It's a lot of work to cut everything, tape everything. I didn't find them that reusable from year to year. It was a lot to store from year to year. So I like the method that, you know, I have come up with, and it works for me. And we'll get that into a video soon in the next week or so, and I'll share that with you guys. I want to try winter sowing a lot of things, just like last year. You know, there's quite a few seed packets kicking around that have been kicking around for a while, and if they grow, that's great, and if they don't, you know, I'm not going to shed any tears over them. But it's a good way to, you know, use your seeds but not take up your precious light space inside too, and experiment. Like, it's always fun to try new things and, you know, see what works. And anything that you can winter sow and start outside, you know, it saves your precious indoor space, and it's usually a lot more hands-free and hands-off too. So we will do that soon as well. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you're getting excited for the growing season. I can't wait. I'm a little hyper if you can't tell. And I hope you come back, and we'll see you next time.